Hello and welcome back to Tabcast, which is produced by Tab Group. I'm your host Tanya, and today we are digging deep into a theme that is reshaping the future of farming across continents. The theme is called Sustainable Agriculture and Building an Equitable Food System. Joining us today is Dr. Jeremiah Rogito. He is a trailblazer in sustainable agriculture and food systems transformation across Africa. He has a track record of impacting a number of smallholder farmers, and he's also top 40 under 40 Africa honorary and a true advocate for youth-led agri change. Welcome to the podcast, Jeremiah. How are you? How are you feeling today being here with us?
Good morning, Tanya. I'm feeling very well and nice to have this conversation.
Great. So, before we get into the soil of things, which is pun intended, just a quick shout out to one of the most dynamic agri platforms in Africa. I am talking about the Africa Agri Expo. So, if you've never attended, think of it as the ultimate agricultural melting pot. We bring innovation, investment, policy, and partnerships all under one roof. So, tuning back to today's conversations, and before we start with the Q&As, Jeremiah, tell us more about yourself, how you landed in the agriculture space, and what has been your biggest motivation so far.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tanya, for that question. I was born and bred up in Kenya. I grew up in rural Kenya in a place called Trans Nzoia County, which is known to be the breadbasket of Kenya. Most of the Kenya consumes maize quite a lot, and most of the really rich growing area for maize in this particular country is in Trans Nzoia County, where I was born and bred up. And I mean, growing up, my parents were farmers, so I saw them working on the farms and later on when they transitioned into employment in agriculture. I remember walking around with my dad across Western Kenya, meeting farmers, meeting stakeholders, and really I was really drawn to agriculture as a trade. Yeah, of course, my undergraduate training was on BSc in agriculture in a premier institution for agriculture in the country. I did my master's in management of agribusiness because it's not just about growing crops or keeping livestock in the right manner. It's about transitioning it into a profitable enterprise. And I think went to a business school, Strathmore Business School, to really build my capacity to ensure that as I grow crops, so that I lead people in the growing of crops, we ensure that they are profitable as well. My doctorate degree focused on issues of leadership, particularly on youth, because I believe that they're the next frontier able to drive food system transformation across the continent. So my focus really was about how young people can be able to drive food system transformation, majorly focusing in Kenya and how that can translate to the African continent. And over the time, I've been able to work in a number of institutions. And luckily this year, I had the privilege as a result of having completed my undergraduate degree at a young age, becoming one of Kenya's youngest PhD. As a result, also became one of the top 40 under 40 2025. Thanks.
Well, that was very powerful, and I'm really thrilled to understand that from you. And it's great to know how personal motivations can eventually, lead to create impactful successes for professionals like yourself who are aiming to build something that is youth-led, that is also powering the future and also putting a lot of effort in the a very integral part of the economic circle, the agriculture sector. So I let me know how long has it been that you've been at AGRA and why AGRA? Why did you choose AGRA?
Yeah, I started my career working with a German institution called WHH, worked in Western Kenya for quite a long time, then promoting a sweet potato value chain and amongst other value chains. Then later on transitioned to SNV, worked in SNV for almost 2 years, then supporting initiatives that was driving the vegetable production and consumption, but also linking into job creation, particularly for women and youth. And I think I love that initiative where I worked for 2 years. In fact, so those 2 years, I used to call myself Veggie 001. I almost thought that my career will end up mainly working around vegetables, writing around vegetables, because sub-Saharan Africa has the lowest consumption of vegetables, yet we know the potential of vegetables to be able to ensure that it nourishes our health and also ensures that we have longevity of life. Yeah, but around that time, AGRA also was looking for someone to drive the regenerative agriculture agenda, and that's how I joined AGRA. And over the last 2 years, I've been supporting AGRA in a number of initiatives, particularly in the area around regenerative agriculture, which is extremely close to my heart, but also the agenda around youth engagement, because that's what I studied both for my master's and also for my PhD, but
Yeah.
also spent a lot of time in my past career working around those two key areas.
So, Jeremiah, sustainable agriculture has become more than just a buzzword today, and it's now the baseline for building resilient food systems, especially here in Africa. But we are still balancing between traditional practices and emerging tech and ensuring farmers, especially smallholders, are not left behind. So, if I were to set the tone of this question that I want to build upon, what is your take on how the idea of sustainable agriculture has evolved over the past few years? Are we seeing genuine transformation, or are we still stuck in some kind of a pilot project mode?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I haven't lived for long, but at least I can speak for the years that I've been able to live. And actually, sustainable agriculture for the institution, for instance, which I work for, AGRA now, is a key area. As a matter of fact, actually, the unit where I'm based here in AGRA, we call it the Sustainable Farming Unit, where we see that as we continue to produce our food, and we need to produce food for a growing population, as the population continues to increase, land sizes across the world, land size is not increasing. The land size for Kenya at independence is still the land size as at now, but population continues to increase, and we need to produce for those people that are continuing to increase. And it's projected that population will continue increasing even as we live forward and look into, for instance, 2030. The population will keep on increasing, and we need to produce sustainably for this particular group of people. But as we continue to produce, also we are producing amidst a changing climate and changing climatic conditions, unpredictable weather patterns, and therefore it becomes very critically important to ensure that as we produce our food, we ensure that we look at that we're able to achieve triple benefits. Actually, one of the things that I examined for my doctoral studies, looking at issues around youth and food systems, I looked at the triple benefits. One of people, ensuring that as we produce our food, we produce food that are beneficial to our people, beneficial to all people groups, but also secondly, looking in terms of how we're able to produce food that brings profits, and also looking at in terms of producing food that is good for our planet, so that we do not compromise our planet as we push out output, as we push out productivity. We do not compromise production over the next years because we've depleted ourselves or depleted our environment in general.
Right, that's such an insightful point, Jeremiah. And AGRA has been pivotal in linking farmers to markets and also improving input access. We've witnessed some of those results in AGRA's previously produced projects and how you're working around all of the sustainable farming methodologies. But how do you ensure that sustainability and equity go hand in hand? Because equity is as important as sustainability is. Like, are you designing systems with the farmers or for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the ways that AGRA works in, and General sitting here at the headquarters, we support our countries, and AGRA works in 15 African countries. We support our countries in designing initiatives that are impactful, that ensures that we're able to transition to a productive system that ensures maximum productivity, but also ensures that we have equitable livelihoods both for, and particularly for young people, which is increasingly becoming a major focus for us. And one of the things that I've put there in our regenerative agriculture playbook, looking at sustainable farming, is ensuring that as we design solutions, we do not design solutions in isolation. We ensure that we work hand in hand with farmers. But also, most importantly, ensuring that as we design these solutions, they are context specific, because what works in Kenya, not just even in looking at Kenya as a country, what works perhaps in the eastern part of Kenya does not work in those semi-arid and arid areas of the country. So ensuring that as we design these initiatives, they are context specific. We ensure that we also work very closely with the farmer. We do co-creation. But also, most importantly, because we do not have the monopoly of resources across the African continent, and even in Kenya particularly. So ensuring that we're able to work in collaboration with partners and all investors that are working in the area of agriculture. But also, one of the areas that we've put a lot of emphasis and focus, as a matter of fact, AGRA works in 4 key areas. One is sustainable farming, that is climate adaptation, sustainable agriculture and resilience, where I predominantly sit. But also we work around areas of markets, because it doesn't matter how good you produce your food. If you're not able to sell and make money from it, then there's no need of continuing to do such kind of business. The other area that we work on is ensuring that we have good seeds, because if you do not produce good seeds, then you cannot be able to sustainably produce. But also we work very strongly in an area called policy and state capability. And this is the point I wanted to make, that in all the initiatives that we run, we ensure that we work very closely with government, because in any across the continent, any economy, government is the biggest spender, and you cannot be able to drive any sustainable or equitable transformation without working very closely with government. So, like for instance, in Kenya and across the countries we work very closely with the national governments and subnational levels of government to ensure that we're able to drive this transformation.
Right. I think, and I love the emphasis on how co-creation is an important factor when you consider your projects. It's like we can't always blueprint change from the boardroom. We have to have boots on the ground and and maybe even in the mud sometimes. So if we were to talk about tech for a second, from precision agriculture to satellite mapping, there's a lot of buzz around agriculture technology today. But what technologies do you see as game changers when it comes to sustainability and equity? Since we talked briefly upon that, especially those that
Yeah,
work in
thank you
the
so much for that
food.
question. I had the privilege 2 or 3 weeks ago to speak at Safaricom the Code conference, and the focus really was tech in agriculture. And I said even when using very simple technologies for using very simple technologies can be a big game changer. And I used my own personal experience as a farmer many years ago. Not many years ago, I still do farming anyway. But this particular experience that I was sharing at that time when I decided to venture into big time farming. And when you think about the use of technology, how it enables you to spend less time on the farm to ensure that you become more efficient. And I was given an example, particularly of when I talk about spraying, for instance. If you compare spraying using a knapsack and how many people you need to employ on the farm to walk around with a knapsack sprayer to be able to spray, for instance, that time when I was doing 50 acres, you spend a lot of time and it's not very efficient as compared if you were to use, for instance, a drone to within a very a short period of time, you've been able to spray the whole piece of land. But also using satellite technology, but also in terms of monitoring, in terms of the progress, in terms of the crop itself, in terms of also, there are four major factors of production that we studied in our undergrad, in our high school agriculture, or even undergraduate: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. And I've always said if you are not able to manage those people in the farm well, they can be able to do crazy things on the farm. So also ensuring that you're able to use technology to monitor the people that you've employed in the farm, because you'll not be at the farm at all times, but you should be able to monitor even when you're away what is happening in the farm. So I believe technology is really a big game changer. But something interesting that I experienced while doing my studies on my PhD on youth and food system transformation, one of the areas I examined was technology particularly. And it was interesting that technology was seen not to be a very big driver of transformation. And I had to examine, therefore, really why is it that we are seeing this, because yet we know from literature and from experience. And that's when I came to realize it's not just about the knowledge of these technologies, because for many young people, they know that drones exist, they know about precision farming, they know about many other tools. But it's not just about knowing about them, it's about having access to these tools and using these tools to be able to guide, to enable you to make that transformation.
Exactly. And I think over the years, even we have learned that agri-tech is obviously exciting, but it is not just flashy, but it is farm ready. I mean, if I were to pass away a statement, it would definitely be that everybody loves a good drone shot, but giving us solar irrigation and weather smart apps would any day be the pick of today's fast generative agriculture ecosystem. So we also can't ignore climate, Jeremiah. Droughts, floods, and shifting seasons, especially in the African region. It's like farmers are becoming frontline climate warriors these days. And what kind of resilience building practices should be prioritized according to you, particularly at the grassroots level?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very familiar ground to me. Actually, my job title at AGRA is specialist for food systems, land use, soil health, and climate. So climate is a major part of the work I do every day, day to day. And it's also the realization really that the 2022 climate status report for Africa, where we predominantly work, demonstrated that Africa is warming faster than the world, that we're experiencing the severe impacts of climate change more than in other place. I mean, for the period that I've lived on this earth, I already see that transformation in terms of how we cannot predict weather anymore. That sometimes when you're expecting it to rain, it's no longer raining. Then we have, for instance, drought. Last year, for instance, as I travel across the African continent, going to areas where predominantly expected them to be producing at that time, there's severe drought that has really ravaged them. One of the initiatives that I facilitated working here at AGRA, we are calling it the Laikipia Isiolo Samburu Transforming the Environment through Nexus. And that particular initiative is focused particularly on the ASALs. And the time I was joining that particular program, we had experienced 4 successive failed rain seasons. And you see, when you have such challenges, then it becomes extremely difficult for you to produce. To respond to your question directly, I think in terms of technologies and initiatives that we can be able to run at the grassroots to ensure that we're able to address the changing climate, from where I sit really is ensuring that we have adequate soil health, ensuring that we have initiatives that do not deplete our soils. So ensuring that we're able to do crop rotation, able to do mulching. And over and beyond just protecting our soil, the other very critical important for agriculture is how we're able to manage our water. And because being a Kenyan, I'll use a lot of Kenyan examples. Majority of Kenya's land, close to 80% of our land is arid and semi-arid areas, that we're having less than 20%, which most people have already occupied the 20%. And therefore, if we're able to drive meaningful transformation across the country here, for instance, it becomes therefore critically important to ensure that we make good use of our arid and semi-arid areas. And that becomes, it only becomes efficient, able to use the water efficiently. So ensure that we're able to store the water nicely in dams and irrigate it later. But also ensuring that we're able to harvest that water, avoid surface runoff that takes away the important nutrients that are needed for the soil. So from where I sit, really ensuring that we're able to manage our soil health, but also ensuring that we're able to effectively manage the water that we utilize.
Right. Now, land is also getting squeezed from all sides, Jeremiah. Urban sprawl on one end, food demand on the other. So, how do we make sure that we're not farming today at the cost of tomorrow?
That's an interesting question because I had the privilege last year to visit more than 20 countries across the African continent. And there's a statistics I used to hear, but I used to think that it's not very true because that statistic says that close to 60% of the arable land across the African continent is unutilized. And I couldn't believe that statistic having I've grown up in Kenya and visiting most places. And as you pass around, you see most of lands are favorably utilized. But as I was flying across, as you immediately leave the airport, you see a lot of people around down there. But 2 or 3 minutes into that particular flight, you already begin seeing vast lands that are completely bare, unutilized completely. So it's a balance here that we need to really critically look at to ensure that those productive lands that exist, they are effectively utilized, put into meaningful use, but also ensuring that we're able to open up new lands, particularly in semi-arid and arid areas, which have the potential also to produce. But also ensuring that we have context specific production so that we do not force the production of a particular crop or the growing of or the keeping of a particular livestock in an area where they cannot be able to survive well. So ensuring that we're able to ensure those crops that are known to predominantly work extremely well in a particular area, ensuring that we're able to maximize its productivity and doing land use planning to ensure that we effectively utilize the land. But it's a delicate balance because already we know for sure, and I've seen that from my own eyes, that a lot of very productive land is still unutilized.
Right. So that those were some really great answers and very informative for an experienced person coming from an experienced person like you. I mean, you have had a good trajectory of understanding the grassroots as well as what is in the current times being trendy in the agriculture sector. So that's a powerful note to end on. Before we wrap up, if you had to give a message to young African agripreneurs tuning into the video, what would it be? And what's the one piece of advice that you personally would like to give to the next generation stewards of the Africa's food future?
Yeah, absolutely. The issues around youth are extremely close to my heart. Up to until 2030, I'll still be in the category of youth. So I'm part of their category. I think from where I sit really is a lot is said, and I want to quote our former boss, Dr. Gabriel Rugalema, who used to say that we've talked a lot about the potential of young people to do something, but Africa, as we see today, does not. We cannot eat potential. We need food. We need to do something to be able to access food. And as a result, because you cannot eat potential. So particularly for the young people who are joining, really to ensure that they're able to start from somewhere, even if it's small, ensure that you're able to do something, move the needle, even if there's slightest needle, to ensure that we actively and meaningfully contribute to both the climate crisis, but also to food productivity across the continent.
Right. Thank you, Jeremiah, not just for the insights, but for the passion that you bring to this space. Africa's agri future, I believe, is definitely greener and better with mind like yours in the mix, and the youth generation that you're trying to promote, as well as the women-led efforts that you're taking to bring the agriculture sector on a better platform. And thank you for all those insights. I hope you enjoyed your time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tanya. It was really exciting speaking to you, and I look forward to meeting you at the next expo.
Absolutely. And to all of our listeners as well, thank you for joining in this episode of Tapcast. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to share us, also tag Jeremiah. And as Jeremiah said, come say hello at the next Africa Agri Expo. And we would love to hear your stories from the